We're back. It is Tuesday evening, and you are listening to Soul Perspectives here on CKUT 90.3 FM. My name is Kim Dominique-Ferguson, and I'm in studios with...
Renee Jordan.
And we
And
have...
Anthony Hyland.
And we have Anthony Hyland, and he is joining us all the way from Hawaii. He's a man who strives for greatness by telling his story through poetry. He has a passion for motivational speaking and educating young minds, and a lot more. I'm very, very happy that you're taking time out of your schedule because I know you're a busy man. You're working multiple jobs. You're an entrepreneur. You're a father of 3 wonderful children. So you got a lot on your plate. So thank you very much for being here tonight with us.
Absolutely.
Because it's COVID times, when we start off the show, we'd like to just do a check-in with our guests. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well. I know COVID has really derailed a lot of people's plans. I know I was supposed to go skydiving for my birthday back in March, and the island ended up getting shut down. And I was like, oh, man, But, the good thing about experience is that they can still happen. Once all of this subsides and we go back to, I guess, what we consider our new normal,
Right.
if you will. So in that regard, some of the experiences that I would have liked to have, we kind of had to push them a little bit more so to the right, but in hopes that things would let up. But my family is good. We've not contracted it, me nor my 3 children or my wife. Definitely prayers out to the families of those who have lost loved ones. I actually lost 2 of my childhood friends. It's rough on a lot of people,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I know that you're also a military man.
I am.
And I'm curious because we don't often get military men to come on the air and speak with us, and I'm curious if it is that you could share how the military has adapted to COVID. Like, what are some of the measures that they've used in order to ensure you guys' safety during whatever it is that you have to do, whatever drills and stuff like that? If that's something you can share.
While I can't speak for the entire U.S. military because, of course, I'm not a spokesperson,
Right.
But I know specifically for me and my specific shop in command, we have regulated hours to whereby it decreases the amount of people that are present in the office, as well as when we go out for different missions and things of that nature. But then more so, I think the communication has been what's best, because one thing that I can say as a whole, because I come from a military family, that the military does is focus on family and ensure that they're not putting the service member in a position to whereby they have to choose between the military or their family.
Oh, wow.
So I do think that, more specifically from my command, that they've done a great job communicating not just with me, but with my family as well.
Right. So I followed you on TikTok. That's how I discovered you, and I find you have an amazing voice. And we share something in that I'm also a spoken word artist. I'm a poet. That's my
Nice.
roots. And I'm just curious, I know a little bit of your story because I followed you on your lives, and you talk very openly about what you've been through, your life experiences. And I'm curious what was your journey in getting to poetry and now moving on to wanting to be a motivational speaker and wanting to become this internationally worldwide renowned speaker?
Really and truly, and I champion this slogan, poetry saved my life. I grew up in the inner city of Philadelphia. I grew up in the foster care system. The first 5 years of my life I spent in foster care. And then from there, just kind of bouncing around from home to home. And one thing that stayed consistent was this anger that I had deep down inside of me, mainly because of, I wanted to know who my father was.
Right.
And my entire goal, and it's interesting, is that I wanted to become so famous that he would find me before I find him.
Right.
And in that, this anger that I had, I've always excelled in school. I skipped a few grades in the earlier years, straight A's all the way until, high school. I got 1B from Miss Johnson my senior year. She gave me an 89, and I still feel some type of way about it.
My dad would say that the teacher does that in order to motivate you to work even harder the next time.
Man, that was some nonsense, man. That was some nonsense. She messed up my perfect record. But anywho, I had this teacher, and I thank him for allowing me to say his name. His name is Joshua Trott. And, he was a white male in an inner city school, just seeking to curb the educational disparities and the tumultuous mindsets that a lot of us have toward not just education, but toward the world in general. And he would see me get suspended for fighting and things of that nature. And, again, my education never slipped. My grandmother was all about education. So I made sure I got my work, went into the school, got my homework, all that stuff. But he said, have you ever thought about writing poetry? I'm like, poetry for the suckers. I'm not writing no poetry. One fish, two fish.
Roses are red, violets are blue.
So he was like, nah, I got an aggressive form of poetry. I said, aggressive? He said, what's that? He said, what about slam poetry? I said, first of all, anything with slam sounds good to me. Right. So he put me on to this organization that I essentially grew up in terms of the poetry scene called PYPM, Philadelphia Youth Poetry Movement. And they're still going strong. They've been to the Brave New Voices multiple times, won multiple times. And in that, I found my voice. I found a way to get out all of the anger and the discontent and, all of those feelings that I was feeling deep down inside. But I was able to allow myself to, put it down in a way that, I could utilize my expansive vocabulary. I dealt with this idea of identity crisis to whereby my vocabulary was seen as essentially a virus, as if I was trying to be something that I wasn't. Or more specifically, my classmates would say that I'm trying to talk white, essentially. Utilizing specific vernacular to whereby growing older and I come across AAVE, it's just like, oh man, why didn't I know this when I was younger,
And pause, just so that our listeners know, AAVE is?
African American Vernacular English, just so that people truly understand and to educate themselves on, why we essentially speak the way that we do, and that intelligence in and of itself is not synonymous with any specific group of people. Anybody can pick up a dictionary and, learn a few new words, but are you using them in the proper context? And in that, what I came to find is that a lot of people were intimidated by my intelligence, and I allowed it to get me down. There's a poem that I like specifically. It's entitled Our Deepest Fear. And the part of it that I love so much is that it states that your playing small does not serve the world. There's nothing enlightened about shrinking yourself so that others feel comfortable around you. Yeah. And for almost my entire life, that's what I was doing. I was shrinking myself so that others feel more comfortable around me because they didn't have the level of vocabulary that I did. But then I also had to learn is that you cannot just be mistreating people or what I call now intellectually bullying people because of your knowledge and or your expansive vocabulary. So whereby you see it as a means of diminishing someone just because you know a few bigger words than them. And you're able to, perpetuate this this false bravado complex of, oh, I'm better than you because I'm smarter than you. When the reality is that we can break it all the way down to its core and still come to an understanding. And the biggest misconception is that we have to agree to understand each other. And we don't. We don't have to agree to understand each other, but I believe the biggest divide between understanding and misunderstanding is just listening. It's just listening. Yeah. So turning to poetry is what allowed me to find my voice and then go off to college and then begin my public speaking journey to whereby I was originally a sociology major. And I looked at the coursework and I was just like, I don't think that's necessarily for me. And then my one of my advisors, Miss Jamie Bradford, who is still my mentor to this day, now I've been removed from college for, 6 years. Yeah. She was like, how about mass communications? And I'm like, mass communications, what's that? TV, broadcast journalism, radio. I'm like, you can get paid for talking? She said, yeah, you can get paid for talking. It's called motivational speaking. And I was like, oh, the people that come to the school and stuff. I was like, wait, they get paid to do that? Oh, bet. Oh, that's about to be my major. So I switched my major to mass communications. Thank goodness I hadn't got into my coursework just yet. And I began my journey. I paid my roommate for a logo. Originally, I was Hyland Enterprises. And I think that's very vitally important that we invest in those that are around us as well, even on our journey to success. That sometimes people think that, you're looking for a handout or you want what we call the homie hookup, when the reality is that he was building his platform just as well as I was building mine. So when I would do my promotional material, not only am I promoting myself and my talents and abilities, I'm promoting him and his graphic design work as well.
Exactly.
And then we formed a group called the Intellectual Brothers, to whereby we would travel to local colleges and universities doing our poetry, my other two brothers at the time, they were rapping as well. So they would rap and do spoken word, and I would just do spoken word. And then my junior year, I got involved. I joined my fraternity, Alpha Phi Alpha, Fraternity Incorporated, the oldest, the coldest, the black and old goldest. To whereby I started the Belford v. Lawson oratorical competition. And I think in terms of people ask me, I do interviews or, people, come on my live streams on TikTok. Well, what got you like legitimately into like public speaking? It was winning that first competition. I went into it and, I'm very transparent, as you see on my live streams. And I'm going to be honest, I didn't really take it as serious as I felt like I should have, but I won first place. And that let me know that other people were taking me more serious than I was taking myself. And I didn't like that. So I made it my goal. So you have the local, which is your chapter. Right. You have the district, then regional, then national. So the local, my chapter was just like, hey, listen, public speaking is what you do. Hey, we're going to push you to the district. You know what I mean? Go ahead, go do your thing.
Right.
So I said, okay, cool. I went to the district. I won first place. And I'm like, wow. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to make it my goal. When I go to regionals, I'm not going to read off the paper. I'm going to memorize my entire speech. You're going to memorize your speech? Yes. I'm going to memorize my entire speech. On that stage, I believe there were 6 or maybe 7 of us. Nonetheless, I was the only one that memorized my speech.
Wow.
And I believe that is what allowed me to stand out on that level and win first place on the regional level.
Yeah.
So whereby I went to the national competition and then I placed first runner-up, which was essentially, for all intents and purposes, second place.
Right.
But if it's one of those competitions where if anybody was going to beat you, it was going to be that guy that beat you.
Right.
You
it
know
was like splitting hairs, right? Like it was.
Oh,
the judges were sweating as they were like trying to figure out.
It's still years later. There's still a discussion on whether or not we should do like a follow up just to see like how well we progressed through the years. And I'm like, I have nothing to prove.
What do you think it was that gave him the edge?
I think the timing of it. So I went more toward the beginning, and he went more toward the end. So when you think about a speech competition, oftentimes the one that's most stuck in your brain is the one you heard most recently. And there were people who would make the argument that maybe if I would have went last with my speech, maybe I would have won. But I don't really like playing the what if game. I'm a very transparent competitor. I truly do believe that I won.
And that's all that matters, right?
But if anybody was going to beat me, it was going to be that brother, Yeah. And we actually formed a group, which was powerful in and of itself. We formed a group within GroupMe to whereby we still communicate to this day, all of the brothers that were assembled on that stage, and we're all in different areas of our life, whether it be healthcare, hospitality management, me being in the military. I think this gentleman, I believe he's in government. I believe he's in corporate America. And we're just all in different walks of life, but yet we're still able to come together and essentially associate ourselves with what we consider the common man, to whereby our social status and or our occupations don't allow us or force us to perpetuate this mindset or ideology, push this ideology that we're better than people because of where we work at, or because of the status that the world would put us in with not only our jobs, but our family structures as well.
As you were talking about the whole competition and going first and last, it reminded me, because I've been on the slam scene a lot here in Montreal, and usually the person that goes first is the one that kind of sets the minds of the judges. So if the first person was really, really good, then the bar is set at a certain level, and then you're either going far down or far above that. And so if the last person is like on point, the first person kind of, as we say in Jamaican terms, you get joke, because it's like
absolutely
you were first, and that your level could only reach a 8.5, and that person is a 10. So even though if you went last, you probably would have had a 10, but so I totally understand the whole score creep happens as well.
Oh, absolutely. I think also too, there's a lesson that I've learned in slam poetry that I make transferable to life, and it's similar to what you just talked about. I think slam in and of itself is so finicky because, like you said, you'll never know what could be a 10 given the atmosphere, given the demographic of the judges, given the political or social climate of the world, to whereby one poem that might have done better in a different venue at a different time, does better at this point in time. One thing that I see too is that you will have a preset group of poems that you are prepared to do, to whereby you see the energy in the room going a certain way. So if you hear love poem, love poem, love poem, love poem, and now you're switching to talk about childhood trauma, you're either going to do one or two things. Either one, you're going to completely tank the energy in the room, or two, you're going to astronomically transform the energy in the room. And literally, it comes down to the person. It comes down to the person. And I think that's, I take that mentality with my TikTok sometimes when things happen in the world and massive amounts of people are pushing a certain notion about a specific event. In my mind, I think if I'm going to take this a different way, am I going to go all the way in a different direction, or am I going to go halfway in a different direction and then revert back? Because then the question becomes, if you're going to revert back, why even try to attempt to change the energy if you're already going to reinforce the energy? So I think in terms of taking a stance on things in life, that we need to ensure that we're taking a firm stance so that people know that where we stand, and that if in fact we are going to acknowledge that of those that have consistently perpetuated and or pushed what I call a groupthink mentality, then you go with that. You either go with that or you change the energy altogether, because then you end up confusing people when you play the fence. But you can be objective, but playing the fence it's a dangerous game. It's a dangerous game.
Yes. Just in case you're tuning in for the first time, we are talking to Anthony Hyland, all the way from Hawaii in the States. We do have to take a little break, but we're going to come back and talk more because this is a really interesting discussion going on. Keep it locked. You are listening to Soul Perspectives here on CKUT 90.3 FM.